Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Louis Gump, Senior Vice President at Cox Media and co-chair of the TAG Digital Media and Entertainment Task Force. I've had a chance to meet many people on this call in various places. And for those I haven't, please know that you're very welcome, and we're glad you joined us today. That's especially true given the both very challenging situation we're in with COVID-19 and also the opportunities that it opens up. One of the things that we're doing is trying kind of virtual panels in a way that we haven't before. And I refer to this now, thanks to the good work that TAG has done, as a pop-up panel with some of the best and the brightest in the digital media and esports industry. So I think you're in for just a great session today. My background before Cox is that I've worked with a couple of entrepreneurial ventures and also with the Weather Channel and CNN along the way, especially in building their mobile businesses. The title of our panel is the E-Pivot, how digital media and entertainment and esports are pivoting to 24/7 virtual audiences. And I think we can all appreciate how relevant that is. Also, if you're interested in attending more of TAG's virtual events, please check out the calendar of events at tagonline.org. We got to get the PSA in here. And now I would like to introduce our panelists and start this discussion. And after that, we'll have questions and answers. So with that, I'd like to hand off to Todd for a quick introduction, including kind of name, role, background, and if you would, and at the risk of getting things going with some interesting comments early, aside from any opinions you have about an Atlanta sports team, what's another team that you followed for a long time and why? So with that, off to you, Todd.
Great. Thanks, Louis. Good day, everyone. So my name's Todd Harris. The first thing you should know is I'm sorry you don't have camera support because I'm dashingly handsome, but you're just going to have to take my word for that. But I've been in gaming for about 15 years, been here in Atlanta since 1990. And so I got into gaming as the co-founder of High Res Studios, which is a developer of games in town. But these days I wear two hats. One is the CEO of a company called Skillshot Media, and we are an esports turnkey tournament operator and production company. You'll hear more about that. And the second is chair of a group called the Atlanta Esports Alliance, which is a division of the Sports Commission here in Atlanta focused on esports events. And in terms of traditional athletics, growing up in North Carolina, I am a die-hard Tar Heel, so UNC Chapel Hill is where I spent some time before coming here in Atlanta. It was a rough basketball year. That was the silver lining of no NCAA tournament, is because my Tar Heels weren't going to be in it. So that's a little bit about me, and look forward to spending some time with everyone this afternoon.
Thanks a lot, Todd. Jeremy, off to you.
Great. Hey, everybody. My name is Jeremy Poore. I am Director of Partnerships for, for Atlanta Esports Ventures. We are a company that was founded between a partnership between Cox Enterprises and Province Inc. We own and operate two esports franchises. We have the Atlanta Reign, who compete in the Overwatch League, and we have the Atlanta FaZe, who compete in the Call of Duty League. Myself, I have been in esports for around 3 years now. Transitioned over from sports. I was in traditional sports, worked for ESPN and Fox Sports for 6 years, but always been a lifelong gamer. So figured, why not work in an industry that's fun and I'm passionate about. As far as the teams that I root for, I'm originally from Louisville, Kentucky. So I went to Western Kentucky University. So I am a Hilltopper first and foremost, but I also cheer for University of Kentucky Wildcats. And I am a long-suffering Washington Redskins fan. So there you go.
That takes some dedication. Great.
Yes, it does.
Thank you for that, Jeremy. And Justin, off to you.
Hey, y'all. Justin Varghese. I'm the North American Marketing Manager for DreamHack, the world's premier gaming lifestyle festival. Last year, our team did 15 shows in 9 different countries, and we were very grateful to be once again welcomed into the great city of Atlanta, where we had one of our largest festivals yet in the United States. So we've been in Atlanta since 2017. All things, assuming everything goes well and, we're not impacted by this virus all that much longer, we're very eagerly and cautiously awaiting our return to Atlanta in November this year as well. But it's the nature of the beast, right? Every single day is always a new challenge, to say the least. But our teams are making some awesome strides despite the state of the world overall. As for my start in esports, I've been working in the industry since late 2014. Back then, I was a play-by-play commentator. I ended up covering about a dozen different games and actually got my start at DreamHack as a commentator back for a festival they did in Austin in 2017. So it's all come full circle, to say the least, going from the broadcast talent side to now being more on the business side of things, and seeing just the rapid amount of growth that's occurred in this space, especially in the last 5 years or so. In regards to unique sports teams, I'd say that since I was born in Seattle, I've been a Seahawks fan for quite a long time, and I know that's going to ruffle some feathers probably for some of the folks that are listening, but just happy to be a Seahawks fan for as long as I possibly can.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you all have illustrated is that, sports just are connected to the lives of so many of us directly, and everybody really indirectly, one way or the other, at least in terms of the media out there. Justin, I'm curious, at some point, are you going to give us the real broadcast voice since you were a commentator?
I'm off the clock right now, so right. I think I'll keep it fairly laid back right now.
All right, that sounds great. Well, we'll consider this our tag digital entertainment kind of audio show. There's lots more coming here, and with that, I want to start with a really basic question for all of us here in this industry, and that is recognizing that we're all fundamentally affected by the COVID-19 situation, which we'll talk about later. Could you all set the table for us by sharing how your business has been evolving for the last 1 to 2 years through about February of this year? And anyone who wants to start, feel free to jump in.
Sure. This is Todd. So, 2 years ago, I was on the game development side, and now I'm more on the event and content production side. And so one silver lining of the COVID situation is in terms of gaming, and that industry is actually thriving right now, as you could imagine. People are sitting at home and they're consuming digital media and they're playing games because games can be done digitally and it gives you some social connection as well. So my former company, Hi-Res Studios, that I was at 2 years ago, and other game companies in general, business is up. It's up about 75% in terms of spending kind of in the last month, and people watching games are also up. In terms of our own business going into this year at Skillshot, which again is more producing esports events and putting out content, pretty simply, there are no live events, so that part is done. I mentioned the Final Four. In addition to that being a great basketball event, there was going to be esports activations there in Atlanta, and we were going to be a part of that, and many activities like that are done. So that side of the business is down, and instead we and others have just shifted to engaging our audience through virtual online connections like this, but typically with video elements and gaming elements also. So one example of that is Collegiate. We power a lot of the major collegiate competition, and a lot of that is done online anyway, but it always ends in a really hype physical finals. We are planning to do one in DreamHack with our pals here in November, but in May the plan was to do one at a local festival called MomoCon here and have that be the finals for the spring. But that can't happen. So big picture, we are shifting from physical events to online competition, online content generation. And for our business, it's not a horrible thing. We had kind of a blend of both of those models anyway. And so we're navigating better than most, I would say. So that's kind of the 2 years up until today.
I guess I can jump in next. Justin Varghese here from DreamHack. I think the biggest thing that's kind of changed within our brand, especially over the last year and a half or 2 years or so, really is kind of where we want to take the future of what we're doing. I'd say that, especially over the last 25 years or so, DreamHack's really made a name for itself with two core fundamental pillars, and those are LAN and esports, respectively. I mean, we hold the Guinness Book of World Records for the largest LAN party in the world. And we also have been home to some of the most absolutely pivotal and incredible moments in esports as a whole as well. So when we're looking kind of to the future of what we want to do as a brand, obviously continuing to execute both of those pillars is the top priority, right? But as a brand, we're now starting to incorporate a lot more of what captures the entire spectrum of the gaming lifestyle as a whole. And I think that that's really been augmented by the fact that even culturally, we've seen a big shift in regards to how gaming is perceived. It's really cool to see so many moments, whether it's something like Ninja streaming with Drake a year and a half ago, or even more recently, athletes competing in a 2K tournament, right? I think moments like these are starting to make it so that gaming is becoming more and more of a cultural norm than a cultural niche, if you will. And that means that us as a brand are able to make some smart moves to encapsulate and bring more folks to the table at the end of the day. For our brand as a whole, especially how it's been impacted since February, as you can imagine, being a brand that's really focused around executing these large-scale live events, whether they're a full-on festival or a massive arena event, it's been very difficult, very challenging. And we've had to postpone some events as a result of what's going on in the world right now. But what that finally gives us is some much needed breathing room to work on a ton of neat digital initiatives. A lot of it's under wraps right now. I'm really excited to follow up with some of y'all and share with y'all firsthand what we're working on. But really the idea is to pivot away from simply a DreamHack Dallas or DreamHack Atlanta or DreamHack summer or winter approach, and really more of a holistic DreamHack 365 approach to make it so that our attendees and our fans are engaged with our brand all year long and not just seasonally and cyclically whenever an event is rolling around.
Thank
All
you,
right, hey everybody, this is Jeremy. For the last 2 years, so we launched the Atlanta Reign brand back in October 2018. We are one of 8 expansion teams in the already Overwatch League that had 12 teams. So now a total of 20. All teams were based in LA for last season. As a team, we had a very successful year. Finished top 6, made the playoffs. We had the fastest growing social media following of all of the Overwatch teams. We were number 1 in jersey sales, number 2 in overall merch. That's through fanatics.com. We had 1 of 3 live events that the league did last year. We sold out the Cobb Energy Center. So we were very poised for a very exciting 2020 season and had 2 live events planned for Atlanta. We also now have the Atlanta phase of the Call of Duty League that we launched in late fall in partnership with FaZe Clan. They are part owners of the team. FaZe Clan is the largest gaming lifestyle brand organization in the world, have millions upon millions of followers. We did a great live event at the new Gateway Arena and which was, we were very, very happy with and look forward to. Both teams would actually be traveling this year like a actual sports league. We had plans to go over to Paris, Canada, China, all through the U.S. and compete against the other Overwatch and Call of Duty teams. So leads us up to now and how we've been affected by COVID. Of course, all homestands and all traveling by the teams has been canceled. Both leagues have now shifted to online play, which has started the last couple of weekends, which has been pretty interesting to watch, since the leagues and the production and everything and the casters and the teams, everybody's competing and doing production from their houses. So there have been a few road bumps, so to speak, but every week has gotten better. And this is the way it's going to be throughout the rest of the seasons. And both seasons will, end in August. But viewership numbers have been great, and production value of all the events has been really good and getting better. So it's been an adjustment for both leagues. So yeah, that's kind of where we are right now. We're all trying to make it work.
Yep, makes a lot of sense. And I think one of the things that comes through is the enormous momentum that the industry has had, and then the disruption that's hit just about every industry you can think of has also arrived here. I want to adjust the order of questions just a little bit to pick up on COVID. Since there's already been some comments about the current impacts, I think also layered into your comments were ways that your businesses are changing, and in some ways opportunities are opening up. For example, this concept of a DreamHack holistic 365 sort of experience. Could you all comment a little bit more, to the extent that there are additional challenges, feel free, but also ways that you think the COVID-19 situation is going to change things, not just for the next 2, 3, 6 months, whatever the right time frame is there, but also a good bit of time after that. So open question to the panel.
Sure. This is Todd again. So I guess I'm a silver lining sort of guy, half full always. So, there's definitely been an impact to our industry and our company, as with everything. But I guess in the same way, I think that more broadly, our company, Skillshot, everyone is, of course, working from home. And honestly, there's a lot of amazing things about it. Like, I'm going to have a renewed appreciation of the power of working from home. And I'm guessing that a lot of companies are going to have that, and they may go into the new world with a little different perspective on the importance of being in the same physical office environment, honestly, and paying a lease, and they may squeeze that down a little bit. So related to our business of esports, Jeremy mentioned this for his team, but where part of our business model is doing production services for other folks, we have retooled our technology so that we can do production services as a COVID-safe, homebound experience where everyone's working from their house. And this is actually a rewind to esports 7 years ago, when that's how most of the content was generated, because there were lower budgets and we weren't, as an industry, filling arenas. We had someone from their bedroom streaming, and that was esports. So it's a bit of a rewind to some of those principles, and it means we're leaning into making sure the audience is engaged more than maybe sizzle of production values. And again, I think some of that is really healthy, actually, because it kind of takes you back to what really matters to your audience. So that's a little bit about us in terms of, I guess, the silver lining and some things that will carry forward even when everyone can gather in large groups again.
Piggybacking a bit off of that, I think that one thing that our space in particular kind of has going for it, due to some of the legacy that Todd had talked about before, is how our constituents essentially determine what is high value content, right? Don't get me wrong. I think that whenever there is the opportunity to produce a massive arena style or festival style event, that is very much a high, top quality premium experience. But what we've seen a lot, especially from a lot of, I guess, more esports and gaming fans in general, is especially as we've kind of had to take a step back and do a lot of bedroom productions and whatnot, we've actually seen a lot of numbers jump up. And granted, a lot of that is because of the fact that folks are now inside and they're looking for more things to do as their Netflix queue starts to run out and things like that. But overall, I think that our audience is really welcoming and really accepting as a whole whenever it comes to things like bedroom broadcasts and whatnot. Acquaintance of mine, for instance, ran an Age of Empires tournament, right? This is a very fringe game, to say the least. It's not something that comes immediately to folks' minds whenever we talk about big numbers or anything like that, right? And yet, despite the fact that it's such a fringe title, he was able to pull, I think, something like 35,000 concurrent viewers over a period of 8 hours, something like that, which is absolutely bonkers in my mind, right? But again, it just kind of goes back to what I suppose concessions naturally some folks who have been in the gaming and esports space for a long time are willing to make, especially from an audience perspective, right? I think that making that drastic of a pivot might be a little bit more difficult, say, in traditional sports mediums. But for us in the esports space, I mean, it's something that we came from, and it's something that we're comfortable needing to go back to if the cards are dealt and this is just the hand that we have. And I think that as a whole, the industry's done a really good job of kind of rolling with the punches that COVID has thrown our way, and still producing high quality content that our audiences absolutely love.
Yeah, it's just what Justin said. It's really, for us, it's about content. Our community is loves and is rabid about content, about the players behind the scenes, their everyday lives, etc., and just watching them play, giving tips and tricks, etc. So we've been really trying to focus and double down on that. And the numbers that we're seeing from our social media and our YouTube is telling that we're doing a good job. We're also very lucky that our Call of Duty team, we just happen to have one of the largest launch of the game Warzone within Call of Duty. That I think it's 50 million players in the last month. So we've been creating a lot of content with that and our players, and also having those guys take part in other tournaments that other orgs and other organizations and leagues are putting on. So we really try to focus on the content, but yeah, try to be positive about this time that we're going through and look at it as only temporary. But this is a great time for esports and gaming as a whole to really shine, because there's nothing else on TV to consume. So we're just trying to take advantage of it and do a good job. So,
and if I can just pile on that point with a little more gunpowder, because for me, this is kind of a core issue and goes beyond esports and sports. And I mean, Justin and Jeremy just mentioned it, content and value. And I think our perspective is, ultimately the audience decides what's valuable. And sometimes we can all get caught up in adding production value and sizzle that may not translate to value. Justin talked about this bedroom broadcast that's in our roots. And for certainly the esports audience, a lot of that is the value. It's the closeness they have with the players, which is very different from traditional sports. Of course, when they watch on Twitch, they can talk directly to the competitor. Our players tend to be very active on social media. So a lot of it is about access and, again, more behind the scenes sort of stuff versus it has to be so polished with production values. And I think this is broader than esports. I mean, if you look at a platform like TikTok and its 30-second mobile phone videos, and and that those folks are, have 40 million followers, I mean, rivaling broadcast TV. I think it shows a real demographic shift around what kind of certainly millennials, Gen Zs value in terms of the content they're consuming. So I think that beyond being kind of trapped at home, there's just more raw, authentic content being put out. And that's why one of the reasons you're seeing the lift is people actually value that.
Yeah, and just an example of that, we had a partnership in place that we hadn't announced yet with McDonald's and the Greater Atlanta Co-op of McDonald's. So we were planning on doing this big elaborate announcement video to kick off the partnership, and then COVID hit. So we're like, man, what can we do? But just, knowing our community and the players, we just had one of our popular players do a vlog from his apartment of him ordering, McDelivery. And it's kind of our way of announcing the partnership. And it came across real organic, authentic, and the community loved it. And the response on social was great. So, it just goes back to knowing who your audience is and being honest with them. And, hey, we're all going through this at the same time. So something as simple as having our player with doing a vlog using his iPhone was a success. And we help push McDonald's push the McDelivery or our drive-through specials and readjusting the partnership. So just an example I wanted to share.
It's great to have those observations and examples as well. And your comments remind me of something that a longtime expert in digital media said on the phone earlier this week. And he said, and I'm going to paraphrase here, he said, this is a lot like going back to a simpler time, except we have internet. And the idea was for many of us, there are walks in the neighborhood for people with families, kids are riding bikes, there are family dinners, or you're slowing down and so forth. And yet the amount of streaming and the broadband connections mean for a whole lot of people that there's just more use. And with that, it plays right into the strengths of this space and gives us opportunities as well as the challenges, which I think we all can acknowledge. And with that, having talked a bit about where we've been in recent years and also some of the effects of COVID, I did want to look at an adjacent area a bit and check with the panel on the following. How have traditional sports been moving to the esports world? Because at the same time you have let's say Overwatch growing on the one hand. On the other hand, you've got these huge leagues that have all sorts of opportunities and also some challenges of their own. So then opening up to the group.
Sure, I'll start off with that. This is Jeremy. It's exciting to see these large sports leagues taking notice of esports and gaming. Finally. I think a lot of them, it's an audience they're not hitting. So you're having, NASCAR, of course, NASCAR with iRacing, which has had a huge success now on FS1, doing their virtual racing and having, gamers competing with the actual NASCAR drivers. You're having NBA 2K, the NBA using NBA 2K and having a tournament set up with some of their top talent, top players. NFL did a Madden tournament with current and retired players, alumni. MLS just announced the tournament that they're doing. And also MLB is having teamed up with the show, their video game, the show, and having a player from each team compete against each other. So it's awesome to see them, focusing down on this. I know leagues like MLB and NFL are having a hard time reaching that 18 to 34 demographic. I think the average age of the NFL fan now is like in the 40s. So it's encouraging. And what I'm interested to see is moving forward once, restrictions are loosened and the sports leagues roll back, is to see, audience numbers for esports and gaming, if they continue to do this and the kind of numbers they draw and just the interest levels that if they continue to peak.
Thanks, Jeremy. Any other comments, Todd or Justin?
Yeah, Jeremy hit some of the major examples, which is great. Again, most of the major traditional sports leagues or franchises have dived in now. And I think we all think that's great. Someone mentioned the crossover moment when the artist Drake played with Ninja Fortnite and kind of exploded the internet. And, both sides grew their audience. And I think we all see a big opportunity for both musical artists and traditional sports athletes to continue to engage in gaming. And the great thing about it is it is authentic. These athletes are gaming. They're folks that they grew up with it and they do it in their spare time. And for some of them, it's a passion. For some of them, they're crazy competitive. So it's a legitimate, authentic crossover, which is why I think it's working. So yeah, it's super encouraging to see. It's going to expose the leagues to gaming. It's going to expose more kind of mainstream consumer brands to sponsor opportunities. And yeah, we applaud it. Love it.
Justin here. Just piggybacking off of what Todd and Jeremy said, and to offer a bit of speculation, I guess. I think that this is very much phase one in regards to how traditional sports is adopting a bit to the esports and gaming models. And they're kind of doing it in ways that make sense to them. NBA players are playing, you guessed it, NBA 2K, et cetera, et cetera. What I'm very interested in is to see if there's going to be any moves, especially when it comes to some of the digital broadcasts and the digital content that's being created by these different channels and entities that are maybe a bit outside of games that are direct correlations, right? Like I'd be very curious to see if the NBA, for instance, would sanction some sort of event where NBA players were, say, doing something like Fortnite or Rocket League or something like that. Because one thing that I personally feel is that, I don't think that it's necessarily competition, right? Where esports is 100% taking away from sports fans as a whole, right? I feel like it's more complementary in the sense that, especially when I'm looking at a lot of influencers within the gaming and esports space and things like that, they love esports to death. I mean, that's what's really made their livelihood and whatnot. And they love gaming to death, but they're also constantly engaged in the traditional sports world as well. And I feel like there's a huge opportunity if they can maybe get around some of the red tape that kind of lies around there to make it so that these athletes in some of this downtime are engaging beyond just the games that are direct ports of the sport that they play. And I think that if they're able to do that, they're going to be able to tap into totally new audiences and, more importantly, younger audiences that, as Todd and Jeremy have pointed out, these traditional sports have had a very difficult time reaching traditionally.
And I think just to kind of clarify that, because for people not familiar with esports at all, you might assume that what we're talking about with esports is only a virtual version of basketball and football and soccer. And as Justin said, those properties do exist, and that's the current phase. Is you have real life basketball players playing basketball, you have real life NASCAR drivers in a sim playing an iRacing game. But even though those are very popular video games, they're not the most popular today esports in terms of spectators. So what Justin's kind of mentioning is there's other games, a Rocket League, a League of Legends, now a Valorant, a Fortnite, that have 10x or 100x the audience. And so this might be kind of the gateway to reach even more people by broadening the number of games that they're playing in.
Yeah, I think what you're seeing now is on social media, once the lockdown happened, tons and tons of professional athletes getting on social, asking about how they can get involved, what their favorite games are, really for Twitch and streaming their games. I know that a lot of these guys are playing Valorant, they're playing Call of Duty. Twitch Rivals has a big event coming up where they'll have like 230 professional athletes taking part. But Justin makes an interesting question: is that eventually will we see the actual blue blood, these big leagues getting involved and actually partnering and sponsoring these big events outside of what the athletes, their actual sports? I think one thing partnership wise that was very smart that NFL did, if people saw this, with NFL partnered with Fortnite and actually had the NFL team skins within the game, which was, a genius move on them to get their brand, to get that brand awareness within, 14, 15, 16-year-old kids, having them wear, Atlanta Falcons skins within the game as their character. So it's going to be fun to watch the evolution and see how that happens. Well, there it goes.
Thanks for those examples as well. And I think one of the things that comes out of your comments there is that esports is multifaceted, and except maybe for a number of people who are deeply familiar with the space, there's a lot more to explore that is appreciated from any one vantage point. I did want to do a quick check in the event that there are questions from the audience. Please feel free to post them. Rebecca, I believe that we have the ability to take those questions, and we'd be happy to filter them in. And then your comment just now reminded me that this idea of linking kind of real world information to esports is not new. And thinking back to an early deal that was done in the space between the Weather Channel and Madden Mobile, we actually were able to insert real weather conditions into a simulation game, which got a lot of gamers really excited back with that as well. And, we started talking about the players themselves, and it's easy here to think a lot about the professional athletes in MLB, NBA, NFL, et cetera. And at the same time, this is also affecting college athletes. And I'm wondering if you can comment on how college athletes' experiences are being changed by esports.
Sure. Yeah, this is Todd again. So again, I think all of us, even if it's outside our core business, feel that like traditional sports, there's really a big opportunity to build a whole kind of pipeline of talent development, and the positive values that come along with that, the things that parents associate with when their kid plays traditional sports. Many of those can be developed through esports, and that's one of the things that our company Skillshot tends to really emphasize and lean into. And so that means we do a lot kind of in the scholastic area, and specific to college, which is all of esports is the Wild West. College is even more the Wild West. There's a lot of groups doing a lot of interesting things right now. Notably, the NCAA has said they are not going to participate in esports at this time. That could change, but they've commissioned multiple studies and decided for a few different structural reasons they're not going to engage at this point. So we work with a group called NACE, the National Association of Collegiate Esports, which is trying to fill the void that people might think the NCAA would occupy. So it's a nonprofit, member-driven group with about 200 U.S. universities that pay dues and that work kind of in a commission fashion to decide on games, to decide on regulation, eligibility requirements, everything you'd see in traditional athletes. So here locally, Georgia State is a member and actually hosted their convention a couple years ago. And so there was competition that was happening, and we were powering that. And what happened was esports is kind of in this half and half situation. So the good news is that many students can still compete and are still competing because they can play from their homes. But the two considerations are, number one, some schools have said as a school policy they are not having any sports or activities, and some schools have included esports in that. So they've said we can't have students competing on behalf of our school. So that's happened with, some handful of schools. And then even for universities that say, yes, you can still play on behalf of Georgia State, normally they play on the campus and they've got equivalent PCs and internet, and now they're at home. And so there's kind of this equity issue where not everyone's got a setup and or the same internet. So in the case of our league and this NACE construct, right now it's in exhibition and engagement mode, where the official season has been basically paused or canceled because we don't want it to count in terms of a national championship if a school can't compete or some students can't compete. But there's a ton of competition that is more for engagement. So, organized scrims, if you will. And we're doing that in the game Overwatch, where, one of Jeremy's teams plays in at the professional level, and in Fortnite, and in Rocket League, and in Counter-Strike, CSGO right now. So there's a lot of playing, but there's a little bit less actually appointing champions right now because of the situation.
Thank you on that, especially with Tar Heels and Wildcats among us. Any other thoughts about college athletes and their experiences?
I think one thing to keep an eye on is something that Gen G is doing. Gen G partner with the University of Kentucky, and is helping with their esports. I don't know if Todd, if you have anything else to add on that. I'm just universities. But for us, as being franchises, teams, of course, we're always looking for new talent. Universities and colleges we're always constantly looking for talent, and you'll see teams and franchises that will actually take kids from these esports programs from colleges and put them on there, and so they'll actually give up college and go compete and play. So it's the same as being recruited to a college, that they actually these orgs and teams are actually recruiting kids out of college as well for these opportunities. Now, me being a dad, I of course would tell my son to make sure he's focusing, or he'll go back to school, or make sure he's focused on next. So, but yeah, it's going to be fun to watch that and to see these more and more universities and colleges get involved and offer scholarships. You're seeing more of the bigger universities offering it now. But I think with what Gen G is doing will be something I want to keep an eye on.
Yeah, just picking up on that, I think Jeremy makes a couple points. One is there's a lot more to the esports industry as far as workforce development than being a competitor. And secondly, you have endemic groups that have lived esports starting to partner with universities more than just having a team, but starting to build curriculum. So in terms of competition and scholarship, the group that we work with, NACE, there is already $16 million in allocated scholarship this year that was going into this year for esports competitors. So there's quite a commitment already. And then the Gen G Kentucky is one of a few different cooperations where these universities are saying, hey, this is a big industry. Gaming and esports is as big as the movie and the music industry combined. So if we want to link to job skills, we should be paying attention here. And locally here in Georgia, we're doing a very similar thing with the University of Georgia system. So it was just about 2 weeks ago, we announced that we're building curriculum toward workforce development, not playing esports, but working in the esports industry. And that first set of coursework will actually roll out with Georgia State this fall, and then expand more broadly through the University of Georgia system. So you can take an esports class, soon multiple classes, you can get college credit, and it's being linked to jobs Might be like Justin, where you become a shoutcaster, or maybe you work for Skillshot related to production or tournament organization. There's, for every LeBron Jameses, there's 100 other jobs that are created around that. And in esports, there's actually even more kind of adjacent industries touched than in traditional sports, because you have this heavy technology angle in addition to kind of competition, marketing, and culture.
I think jumping off of
please go ahead.
yeah, I think jumping off just that idea too, especially when it comes to development, and I'm sure Jeremy and Todd can probably speak firsthand about this more than most folks, but when it comes to the esports space as a whole, it feels like 99% of applicants fall either into one of two buckets, right? So bucket one is, I've loved games my whole life. I've loved esports my whole life. Please give me a job. I have no experience, but please give me a job, right? And then bucket two is people who maybe have the business acumen or the experience, but they don't really actually care that much about the space, and they see it as a vehicle to just make a quick buck and get out, right? I think for a lot of folks in the space, what the challenge is and what folks are really looking for is kind of the diamond in the rough, if you will, that has a ton of passion for the space and simultaneously also has really good real world and business experience as well, right? Because everyone on this call will tell you that, it's extremely late nights, right? Making it so that we can do what we do today, right? It's nonstop 24/7. And unless you're passionate about it and you also have the business sense to make the right decisions to propel not only whoever you're working with forward, but the industry as a whole forward, then at the end of the day, you're going to get burned out. That's definitely not what anybody needs to see by any means.
Yep, I wanted to pick up on a comment. Did I hear correctly that gaming and esports is bigger than the movie and music industry combined? Was that the quote?
Yeah, that's right. It's $140 billion globally. I mean, again, this includes gaming, hardware, software, and esports, but it is massive. So it's already, as you mentioned, bigger than those combined, and importantly, growing, where those other two industries are not growing actually at all, let alone at the same rate.
Sure. So I'd like to observe here, and we're going to transition into a question about Georgia and esports here in a minute, but I'd like to observe that it's easy to miss how big it is. And it reminds me, for example, of the migration from TV to web, when people said, hey, the web, it's essentially the kid sister or the kid brother to TV. And then once the desktop-based web grew, mobile looked like, the youngest in a 10-sibling family. And all of a sudden, mobile grew up to be so big, but it wasn't appreciated as fast by many. And so there should be no mistake here that esports is not only, enjoyed and paid attention to by so many, but also, as just illustrated, it's big business and an opportunity for people to really make an impact there. And with that, especially in the context of TAG, really creating this panel and bringing this group of people together, I wanted to check on thoughts about Georgia's position in the world of esports. How are we connected to other areas and communities? Where are we strong? Where could we grow? Where are the opportunities? That sort of thing. So open table for the panel here.
So, here I'll put on my Atlanta Esports Alliance hat, which is a relatively new group, but one that, we're excited to have the folks on the call a part of. And our mission is to make Atlanta and Georgia the capital of this new industry. So we're biased, but again, just kind of where we positioned. So the economic impact of gaming and esports in Georgia last year was over $800 million. So that is, again, specific to the state of Georgia. And then we have a lot of the key ingredients. We have some game publishers here, the people that make the game and ultimately have the IP rights. They have a lot of leverage in the industry. They're the primary leverage point because they control who else gets to build a business around their game. And Hi-Res Studios and Blue Mammoth, who was acquired by Ubisoft, and Tripwire, these are all local Georgia companies. We have very strong teams here, which, Jeremy can speak to. We have events, which, hopefully the good kind of Atlanta is the center of the Southeast is why Justin and DreamHack chose to be here the last few years, and hopefully will stay for a long time. We've got some great venues that are popping up. 404 Gaming, Axis Replay on the Beltway, a group Allied ESports announced their new venue coming to the Mall of Georgia. And we have some other great endemic brands that are not on the call in the controller space. Scuff and Control Freak. These are two of the most well-known brands globally as far as actually making the performance gear that console controller players play on, and many others that I'm sure I neglected. So Atlanta is kind of in the short list with LA, Dallas, Texas kind of area. There's a lot of activity there. A little bit of Vegas, particularly because betting, which we could talk about, has recently become legal for esports, which we could get into. But that's kind of our regional competition within North America. And we're gonna be number one.
I guess Justin here from DreamHack. I think one thing that really excites me, especially about that vision of DreamHack 2025 and how that applies to Atlanta in particular, really deals with what's really hard-coded in Atlanta and in Georgia's DNA. I feel like especially over the last decade or so, and definitely longer than that too, Atlanta's kind of established itself as a real hotbed for creativity. It's a big time mover and shaker in sports and entertainment, music, film, television, fashion, etc. And for us, again, like as we're starting to expand out that gaming lifestyle approach of our brand, we're just really excited to leverage gaming as the conduit to bring all these different creatives together in the same room, if you will. And we're really excited to kind of see what sort of change that and impact that's going to have, not only locally, but globally as well.
Great. Thank you for those comments. And I see we're coming up on time. I've got two more questions, and I promise everybody we will wrap either a little bit before or right at the hour. One of the things that we've alluded to but not talked about a lot is the business model. So I'm wondering if we can get a couple of comments on that. What makes this such a strong business? And then we'll finish with just kind of a fun question about an experience each panelist has had before wrapping up. So just a comment or two, please, on the business model and how the companies are seeing this growth.
So gaming works direct to consumer. It's moved from a box product to digital, and the most successful games actually use a free-to-play or freemium model, which is very effective because it costs you nothing to try a game. If you hear it's great, you pretty much download it digitally, and it's $0 to get in many cases, or not that expensive. But then there's in-game transactions that basically let you choose your price point. Most people will pay $0, but some people will spend a lot. So it's almost like this infinite supply-demand price point. That combined with digital is part of why the gaming industry is growing so quickly. And then esports, for Skillshot, it leans into what has worked for traditional sports. So there's ticketing, there's sponsorship, there's media rights where one platform will pay to cover the competition, and that's the place to watch. A bit of merchandise, and those are the primary things that make up the pie chart. of the business model. It's actually a lot easier in gaming because the revenue model is very simple. What's very difficult is making a hit game. But once you have one, how you monetize is very easy. And with esports, it's about building audience, and it's a more complex and actually, more challenging right now from a revenue generation monetization angle.
Yeah, exactly what Todd said, especially on the franchise model. It's very expensive on the franchise side to run a team, to own a team. That's one of the reasons why they put, these franchises cost millions and millions of dollars. Like for us, we're going to be doing live events, but we're not going to make a lot of money off of ticket sales. It's really for us, it's our players building a following in the community, having huge social media reach. There is revenue that comes in from the league, as far as the TV and streaming deal with YouTube. But yeah, so it's really trying to figure. So all the orgs now are trying to figure out how to make money, because one of the things that we're having issues with is ROI. A lot of when these big brands come in, they want to see, what's going to be the effect on their business. So I think esports, we're all still trying to figure that out and how we can make money ourselves and actually be profitable. So it's still a work in progress for the North America esports organizations and leagues and teams. The Asian market's a lot different because their fans are a lot more hardcore, a lot more established, huge followings, huge ratings on TV and stream. So the business model and revenue model is a lot better in those markets right now versus North America. But we are trending upwards. I think as soon as we get through COVID, we get back to the live events, get back to player interactions, meeting the players, get back to the leagues being on their regular schedules and doing those big live events. Will continue to grow.
Okay, great. Thank you all. And as we're wrapping up here, I realize that we have a couple of questions. They may take a little longer to answer than the time that's available. One of them is about junior leagues, and one is the published benefits of esports and e-gaming. What we'll try to do is follow up on those after the panel so we don't lose those. So please stay tuned on them. And with that, in the 2 minutes that we have available in a quick speed round, for each panelist, could you describe one of your favorite experiences with gaming and esports ever and why?
Sure, this is Jeremy. I'll start off. For me, I think one of my most favorite things that I've experienced in this industry, unfortunately, there's still a stigma attached to video games, and people think it's these kids that don't have friends or they're in their mom's basement and, they don't socialize and they're introverted. I always tell people, go to a big event like DreamHack or MomoCon or E3 or PAX East or PAX West. The best thing I see is these kids there, and they've all come together for their love of a game or a character. They're all great friends. They met online, they play together, but also seeing the parents and the grandparents that actually take their kids to these events and support them. And that's what I really, really enjoy seeing.
Thank you, Jeremy. Todd?
I got to give you two. The first Smite World Championship was awesome. It was a live event. We'd worked hard on making a game. People were playing it online, and they actually came together. This was before Cobb Performing Arts Center. We did it at Center Stage, and just to see people from all over the world, 80% of them outside of Georgia, coming together with so much passion. That was awesome. And then beyond that, it would be my phone conversation with a kid in high school named Daniel, who plays, again, happened to be the game Smite, but could be anything for his high school. Daniel's in a wheelchair. He could never play traditional sports for his high school, but this gave him a chance to represent his team, and he called it life-changing. Wow, how impactful. And Jeremy, close us out, please.
That's Justin.
Oh, sorry, Justin, go ahead.
That's okay. It gave me a little bit more time. This is so difficult. It's like picking your favorite kid. I think for me, I'm going to go a little bit more grassroots with this. There was in the past, there was this tournament called Apex, which was kind of the Super Bowl of Smash Brothers, if you will, right? And in their event in, I believe 2015 in particular, was marred with so many challenges. The venue that they had actually was hit by a really bad blizzard, to the point where the fire marshal said that it was not fit for public use. And so you have literally thousands of players here trying to figure out how are we going to compete. And through some great grassroots community leadership, as well as very generous pocketbooks from Twitch, they were able to secure a new venue, get everyone transported over there, and actually finish the tournament in a reasonable time span as well. And some of the VODs from that event in particular are some of the most iconic events that have ever taken place in the history of the world of Super Smash Brothers as a whole. So definitely a bit of grassroots history for you, but well worth the trek if you're willing to make it.
Thank you for that, Justin. And with that, we're at time. I want to close with a comment. I believe I have this right from Jeremy, and this is a quote. "This is a great time for esports and gaming as a whole to shine." And with that, thank you to TAG. Thank you all attendees. Thank you to our really impressive panelists, and we hope everybody takes care, stay safe, and please be on the lookout for more events from TAG. Take care, everybody.